Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Okay, the Paint Explainer. Nice. Original link, top of the description. Hey guys, my name's Connor. If you're new, I like to learn things, usually, with your help, or with you. Preemptive like, every political ideology explained in 8 minutes. So, political ideology, not a political system. There's a difference there, right? Because, well, let's find out.
Values in Western culture.
So conservatism, first off.
Conservatism. Conservatism, as the name suggests, tries to conserve traditional values. In Western culture, conservatives usually promote the nuclear family, organized religion, the military, and property rights. Liberalism. Liberalism
Okay,
is
so that means that conservatism could vary widely. It would just depend on the history of the country that you are conservative in, right? Because when I think of conservative, like in the USA, I'm like right there. It's right wing, right? It's Republican ideology, more right wing ideology, but it doesn't have to be. It just depends on what is the status quo of your own country's political history, right?
organized religion, the military, and property rights. Liberalism. Liberalism is usually cited as the dominant ideology in modern history. It usually likes that every single individual has his own rights, that the government has to be approved by its own people, and that everyone should be treated the same way before the law. It also likes free markets, elections between multiple political parties, a separation of powers into different branches of the government, a separation of religion from the government, a set of fundamental values written in the Constitution, privacy rights, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, and freedom of religion.
I like that one. Okay.
Moderatism. Moderatism likes to stay within what is called the Overton window, which is the range of policies politically acceptable to the mainstream population. In most cases, moderates are apolitical, which means that they don't care, but they have a little bit of knowledge about politics. Capitalism. Capitalism is an economic system based on the private ownership of the means of production and their operation for profit. The central characteristics of capitalism are private property, free exchange, competition, division of labor, and social cooperation. Socialism.
Okay, these are the two terms that are always, I always feel like I know them, and then I don't feel like I know them. And then I ask, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And then another thing hits, and I ask another question. Capitalism and socialism. So when it comes to private property, does that mean, like it has a house here as representation, does that mean land itself and a building? Or can it be like your shirt? Is that considered private property? And when it comes to capitalism and socialism, it seems like these are, a lot of the time when I talk with people, a lot of people are like, these are, it seems like these are somewhat new ideas. But when you go into the details of capitalism and the details of socialism, it seems like all of the details have been around in one way or another since the beginning of civilization, you know? Like I'm sure 3,000 years ago, a person's shirt was theirs. I'm sure like 3,000 years ago, there were societies where if you were a farmer, what you grow was yours. And I'm sure there are a lot of societies where when you're a farmer, what you grow is part of the state. And so these two terms, capitalism and socialism, they seem like they're describing new things, but when you go into them, they seem like those are just things that have always existed. Does that make sense?
Exchange, competition, division of labor, and social cooperation. Socialism. There are many types of socialism, making this an umbrella term. In the classical sense, socialism describes worker-owned means of production, heavily supporting worker coups, democratic self-management, and workplace democracy. Socialism in the modern age advocates workers' democratic self-management, high taxation on the wealthy, and nationalization of key parts of industry. One of its key values is social ownership. Syndicalism.
This is the thing with ideologies like socialism and communism that always I end up asking people who support them more. It seems like they are ideals that even human beings themselves can't live up to and don't always make sense. It seems like they're created to, in your head, make what would be just and moral, but when you try to do it and carry it out with flawed human beings, then it never ends up materializing, you know? And so it's almost something that seems dangerous in a lot of ways, but with really good intentions. You know? It's like great intentions and fairness, but also it seems like you have so much faith in humanity that I think might be misplaced. Maybe I'm the wrong one. I don't know.
Key parts of industry.
Syndicalism.
One of its key values is social ownership that unionize. Syndicalism. Syndicalism is the son of socialism, and it believes that unionization of the workforce, the establishment of local, decentralized revolutionary worker organizations called syndicates, and advancement of workers' demands through the use of strikes and direct action are the best methods by which a socialist society should be achieved.
Okay, so socialism is the ideology, and syndicalism is often the ideology with the means of reaching socialism. So syndicalism won't exist when you reach what you want to reach, right? And a lot of things, again, humans aren't perfect, is that I think it's ironic and hypocritical when people who are more for, like, how did he word that?
Central socialism and revolutionary worker organizations called syndicates, and the establishment of local, decentralized revolutionary worker organizations.
Like, would people who are trying to achieve what they're trying to achieve, would these people allow people, let's say they reach their society through syndicalism, would you then allow new syndicalists to form to oppose you? Let's say people want to go away from a socialist society to a more non-socialist one. I feel like a lot of people forming syndicates would say, no, that's not allowed. Well, okay, you were mad because this wasn't allowed and you want to form them. But if you reached the level of power you want and society you want, you would do the same thing to other people that want to go against you. You know? Interesting.
Called syndicates, and advancement of workers' demands through the use of strikes and direct action are the best methods by which a socialist society should be achieved. Once a post-capitalist society is achieved, a congress or commune of syndicates would be created to represent the many unions or areas of the economy for a central government.
Well, that doesn't make any sense.
Should be achieved. Once a post-capitalist society is achieved,
so once it's achieved,
a congress or commune of syndicates would be.
But the whole idea of syndicates you wouldn't need if you reached power. Why are you? So you're going to act like you're still the revolutionary even when you've gained power? That's
Created to represent the many unions or areas of the economy for a central government. Corporatism. Corporatism advocates the organization of society in different areas of employment, like agriculture, military, engineering, etc., which people get assigned to based on their interests and skills. It believes in a cross-class system of regulation in which the workers, employers, and state negotiate with one another in order to most efficiently run the economy and satisfy, in theory, all parties involved.
It didn't seem very good in the term, but that doesn't sound too bad. That sounds pretty reasonable.
It does not refer to a political system dominated by large business interests. That would be a corporatocracy. Libertarianism. Libertarianism upholds liberty as a core value, and it seeks to maximize autonomy and political freedom. It likes a very limited government. It believes in the same principles of liberalism, such as equality before the law and the basic rights to life, liberty, and property. Separatism. Separatism, also commonly known as secessionism, seeks to establish a nation, country, sovereign state, or government that is separate from an already existing nation. Communism.
Okay, so that's another example, like syndicalism. Syndicalism? Was that it? Syndicates? So this, like the syndicates, are a means of achieving a society and not necessarily a political ideology that you would use to run the society you're trying to achieve. So as soon as you achieve these things, they're no longer a thing.
State or government that is separate from an already existing nation. Communism. Communism is centered around common ownership of the means of production, distribution, and exchange that allocates products to everyone in society based on need. A communist society doesn't have private property, social classes, money, or the state. Feminism.
Doesn't have the state? Then how do you distribute things if you don't have the state?
It doesn't have.
See, this is another one where I think it's with good intentions. Like, I don't think this is a nefarious intention. Like, oh, let's do communism so that I can gain power, you know? But I think just with natural human nature, you do end up doing that. And so That's the thing with communism, is that it seems like good intentions, but it worries me when people are so certain it can work.
Have private property.
Disagree with me, please, guys. What the hell do I know? Disagree if you disagree, and let me know why.
Social classes, money, or the state.
I don't understand
Feminism.
the state part.
Feminism aims to define and establish the political, economic, personal, and social equality of the sexes. It holds the position that societies prioritize the male point of view and that women are treated unjustly in these societies. Efforts to change this include fighting against gender stereotypes and improving educational and professional opportunities for women. Anarchism. Anarchism is an ideology that advocates for a society without rulers or constituted authority, with a focus on the notion of freedom. It advocates for the replacement of the state with stateless societies and voluntary free associations.
Yeah, so anarchism and libertarianism seem like they're on the complete opposite sides of the political spectrum, but it's almost like it comes full circle. Like the political spectrum isn't a line, it's a circle. And then anarchism and libertarianism come so close to being identical. I just feel like if you're more left-leaning and you want way less government, you're an anarchist. If you're more right-leaning and you want way less government, you're a libertarian. Is that a simplification? Am I oversimplifying it?
Environmentalism. Environmentalism, sometimes called green politics, is a term used to represent a range of ideologies that fall under the belief that nature should be a significant factor in deciding public policy, be it increasing recycling, decreasing CO2 emissions, stopping water pollution, etc. Populism.
Yeah, environmentalism always seems to me like something that should be implemented within other political ideologies. But having it as its own thing seems a bit strange to me, because not everything is about the environment, you know?
Decreasing CO2 emissions, stopping water pollution, etc. Populism. It focuses on appealing to a large number of people and their sensibilities, believing that what the masses want must be what the masses get. It can take on many forms, as its only requirement is that it represents a movement by the people for the people. This causes it to have no real political affiliation. It's often associated with democracies due to its reliance on popular support. It often divides the people from the elite, and it's frequently anti-establishment and anti-politics. Republicanism. Republicanism is an ideology centered around a system of government that is non-hereditary and, in opposition to monarchism, gives political power to its citizens in a state organized as a republic. Progressivism.
When I think of republicanism, I think of like semi-democracy. Like, I feel like full democracy isn't powerful, and you're all in reality a republic. Because in order for you to be fully democratic and not a republic, then you would have to have no political employees, and every single decision that a state has to make, it has to be voted on by everyone. And I feel like the smaller group of people you are, the more realistic that can be. But as you get into the thousands, tens of thousands, millions of people, how do you do that, you know?
Progressivism says that heritage that stems from the past is not to be held sacred and should instead be viewed as less important than societal progress. It's
kind of like the opposite of conservative.
Basically the opposite of conservatism.
Right.
Imperialism. Imperialism has traditionally believed a country should expand its power or influence through military action. It was once very popular, and it was basically considerable as moderatism, but it has decreased in popularity over the years. Imperialism is noted for its war advocacy and belief that the powerful nations should rule over the weaker ones. It usually...
Well, still kind of the case, just less direct, you know? I feel like imperialism today is just like imperialism in the past, but with extra steps. You can't be as direct. You have to like use your own weight to be a little more nuance? No, nuance isn't the word I'm looking for. You got to be a little more tricky to get what you want rather than just going in there with weapons.
Usually defends himself against accusations of oppression by insisting that colonized people benefit because the richer nations help them and give them things they couldn't get normally.
What if I don't want your help?
Egalitarianism.
It's like, well, you're going to get it either way. Sorry, I'm helping you. Whether you want to be...
Nations help them and give them things they couldn't get normally. Egalitarianism. Egalitarianism is a school of thought that builds on the concept of social equality, prioritizing it for all people. As such, all citizens of a state should be accorded equal rights and treatment under the law. Transhumanism. Transhumanism believes that everyone should upgrade themselves with technology to overcome both the most basic and most complex of humanity's challenges. The ultimate objective is for all people to reach immortality and an incredibly advanced mind and body.
Okay, that's interesting. I feel like that's the most psychotic one yet. Like, what? Okay.
Communitarianism. Communitarianism is an ideology that emphasizes the well-being of and the importance of the community as the primary social unit. It will typically stress the idea that the left-right binary of politics is holding politics back, as well as argue that policies from both sides of the spectrum are complementary and necessary to benefit the community.
Yeah, the problem with that is that within the community, you have people more left-leaning and right-leaning. That's the problem. Do I need to say anything else? It's like, all right, we need to be communitarian, not left or right. And then it's like, all right, what does everyone want? Well, I want this thing. Oh, well, I don't want that. I want this thing. Now you have two sides, a left and a right. So let's try again.
That policies from both sides of the spectrum are complementary and necessary to benefit the community.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of ridiculous too, because that's already what we're doing. That's the whole point of voting and everything.
It believes that absolute individualism is harmful when it contradicts the common good.
Yeah, again, that I feel like, okay.
Authoritarianism. Authoritarianism is a form of government characterized by a strong power, which is usually central, that demands obedience to authority.
I at least respect the openness with stuff like authoritarianism. It's just like, there's no beating around the bush. There's no tricks. It's just, I'm in charge. You're not. Deal with it. I don't like that at all. It's probably my least favorite thing. But it's like, at least you're not trying to like jump through hoops or anything.
And limited political.
I want to make it clear. This is like this is my least favorite. I'm just saying I respect the openness.
And civil freedoms. For example, most classic monarchies are a form of authoritarianism. The ruler of an authoritarian country imprisons and persecutes its opponents. Fascism. Fascism says that people are weak divided, but strong united under the banner, whether that banner be of a state, nation, army, or anything of the like. It is authoritarian, which means that it's characterized by a controlling government that rejects the idea that people can vote between multiple parties. It involves a strong central power, which usually refers to a dictator, so it rejects separation of power. Fascism is also ultra-nationalist.
Right, this is the main difference right here, is that, well, is it a difference actually?
Under the banner, whether that banner be of a state, nation, army, or anything of the like. It is authoritarian, which means that it's characterized by a controlling government that rejects the idea that people can vote between multiple parties. It involves a strong central power, which usually refers to a dictator, so it rejects separation of power.
See, everything said so far about fascism can just be said about authoritarianism or communism as well, you know? It's when you get to the nationalism part, but how are non-fascist authoritarians not also nationalists, you know?
Fascism is also ultra-nationalist, which is the belief that a nation shouldn't care about other nations' rights as long as it benefits itself. Ultra-nationalism usually coexists with militarism.
Okay, so it's kind of like, isn't that just imperialism?
Which is the idea that a nation should have a powerful enough military to expand national interests and values.
Yeah, that's seems like imperialism.
Fascism suppresses opposition using forceful methods. It believes in a natural social hierarchy, and it promotes the
reason why I don't like the overall known hate of fascism is that it allows other, like, the reason I hate fascism is because it's authoritarian. And when people are so triggered by the word fascism, it makes me think they're not paying attention to other means of authoritarianism. And so it's like, to me, fascist and communist societies are equally pretty terrifying to me, you know? And so it's like focusing so much on one part of a bad thing that you might not even see other bad things happen, you know? I wish other authoritarian ideological terms like fascism got the same shock value that fascism has, you know?
Refusal of individual interests for the perceived good of the nation or race. Nazism. Nazism is a form of fascism with a focus on its race.
So communism is authoritarian in a way that we can't let people vote or anything because we might not reach that, you know, communist. I don't like the word utopia, so I don't really want to say that, although I want to. So communism is we're trying to be a centralized state to make sure that there isn't classist exploitation that was present before. And fascism is authoritarian government, but to make it so we're great, and and a lot of the times bringing race into it, and also we can become more great by strengthening military to fight others.
Race.
Is that
Nazism. Nazism is a form of fascism with a focus on its racist ideology, which says that the Aryan race is superior. It believes in a natural social hierarchy, and it promotes the refusal of individual interests for the perceived good of the nation or race.
Perceived good of the nation or race. It sounded like he's like Nazism is fascism, but with race, but he just said race.
Nazism. Nazism is a form of fascism with a focus on its racist ideology, which says that the Aryan race is superior. It believes that the Aryan race should rule the rest of the world to make it better, thus being ultra-nationalist. To be classified as an Aryan by the
So it's like super fascism, super racist fascism.
Nazis, you have to be white, straight, mentally and physically able, non-cowardice, and non-Jewish. If you are considered non-Aryan, you are called Untermensch, which means subhuman. It also likes eugenics, a set of beliefs and practices that aim to improve the genetic quality of a human population. For that reason, people with inherited disorders are considered useless eaters and were killed or sent to camps on sight, as they were regarded as life unworthy of life. Nazism also hates.
So Nazism is like super racist, super utilitarian fascism.
Homosexuals, considering them Untermensch as well. I'll be making similar videos. Subscribe to see them.
Jesus Christ. So Nazism is the scariest one there that was described, but also transhuman. Communitarian is kind of ridiculous because it didn't seem like you were much different than others. Transhumanism was like sci-fi. It was very interesting. Guys, what do I know? Never take any of my words for their word. I'm still learning, and I probably know much less than a lot of you watching. So if I said something you disagree with, call me out on it. Let me know what you think. Would appreciate any answers to any questions I had, any comments at all. Hopefully I'll see you guys next time. We'll keep on learning. Bye, guys.